Hi and welcome. My name is Ryan O'Connell and I will be your instructor during this training video session. In this training session we are going to create a virtual machine using the Powershell command. Once we've created that virtual machine, we will then access that virtual machine via remote desktop. Again, we're going to be using the Powershell method to create that VM. So what is the Powershell method? The Powershell method is a series of commands that we copy and paste into Powershell or type out into Powershell that does something. So in order to create a virtual machine in Powershell, we need to create a resource group. We then need to create a new VM. And as you can see from the command here, we create the new VM. We put it into our resource group. We give it a name of Powershell VM. We specify a location. We specify a virtual network name, a subnet name, a security group name, a public IP address name, and of course we open up ports 80 and ports 3389. 80 is for internet, 3389 is Microsoft's default RDP remote access. Again, what is a virtual machine? A virtual machine is typically a file called an image which behaves like a computer. It's one of the files which contains everything. It runs Windows, Linux, and etc. This gives you the flexibility that you can run multiple machines on a physical computer. Each machine can have a different operating system, and each of these virtual machines provides its own virtual hardware, which includes CPU, memory, network adapters, hard drives, interfaces, and other devices. Just some saving tips on virtual machines. Remember, when you're running an Azure virtual machine, you pay for the time you use. Pricing is based on the size of the operating system and any licensed software that has to be installed on it. To avoid corresponding charges when you're not using it, make sure you change its state to stopped or deallocated. Stop that virtual machine. Don't use it, because if you use it, you're going to be charged for it. Again, not all virtual machines, the pricing is the same. Not all regions will have the same pricing for the same resources. This includes virtual machines, their pricing. Again, the tiers are different, so make sure you check it out before you go ahead and provision your virtual machine. Again, correctly size your virtual machines. This will also help with costing. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a live demo. So let's switch over to the portal and see how this is done. As you can see, I've logged into the portal, so we're going to go ahead and create that virtual machine using Powershell. I'm going to just show you that I don't have any virtual machines. If I click on virtual machines, you will see I don't have any. And if we go to our resource group, you'll see we don't have any resource groups. So I'm going to fire up Cloud Shell. And then as Cloud Shell fires up, I've obviously selected Powershell. And as you can see, Powershell has opened up. I'm going to go ahead and paste in a command to create a resource group. So I'm going to create that resource group Powershell VM, and this is going to go ahead and create that resource group for me. If I click refresh a couple of times, that resource group will show up shortly. And as you can see, by clicking refresh a couple of times, there's my RG Powershell resource group. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in the command to create a new virtual machine. Again, you can follow these instructions and modify it to suit your needs. I'm just going to drag this up so we can have some more real estate. I'm going to click into Powershell and I'm going to paste that command in. And again, that's going to put it into that Powershell resource group. It's going to give it the name of Powershell VM1. It'll be in the East US location. It'll create the Powershell VNet, the Powershell subnet, the Powershell security group, and the public IP address. I'm going to press enter. It's going to ask me for a username, so I'm going to type in AZ admin, and I'm going to type in that administrator's password, and I'm going to hit enter. And this is going to go along and create that virtual machine for us. And it's pretty quick. It can take anywhere from like I say, from about 2 or 3 minutes to maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, while it trawls through and creates your subnet, your IP address, opens up that RDP ports, and starts putting that virtual machine in that resource group. So through the power of video, I'm going to speed up things for you. And as you can see, it's gone ahead and created that virtual machine really quick. So what we can do is we can actually close down Cloud Shell or PowerShell because we don't need it. And if I go to my resource groups and just do a quick refresh, you can see it's created that Network Watcher group by default, and it's created my PowerShell group. And if I click into my PowerShell resource group, you can see it's created that VNet, that network adapter, and my public IP address, and that's all here, which is great. If I go to my virtual machines, you'll see there it's created that virtual machine called P-Shell VM. If I click on P-Shell VM, you can see it's given me all of my information related to my virtual machine. And the nice thing, the virtual machine hasn't started, so we have to go and restart that virtual machine. Of course, we can stop that virtual machine from here, or we can connect. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to that virtual machine, and I'm going to download that RDP file, and I'm going to click download, and this is going to download that RDP file, and I'm going to click connect, and this is going to prompt me for a username and password. So I'll say my username is azadmin, and I'm sorry, admin if I can spell, and I'm going to type in my password and click OK. And this is going to prompt me for a certificate warning telling me, do I want to connect to P-Shell VM1? I'm going to click yes, and this is going to fire up a remote desktop window for me. So I'm just going to drag my remote desktop window over because it's opened it up on my second screen, and I will just maximize it here so that you can see that virtual machine. And just give it a second, it's firing up, and once it fires up, we'll log in. So let's just give it a few seconds to fire up. And as you can see, it's fired up and it's logged us in automatically. And if I click on the Windows icon here, you can see it's my Windows machine. But also by default, I just want you to be aware, when you create a virtual machine using this method, it's going to use Server 2019. We can go ahead and of course modify our PowerShell commands to install a Windows 10 virtual machine. So if I click on my PC and go to properties, you can see that it is actually a Windows Server 2016 data center. So please just bear in mind that when you are creating a PowerShell virtual machine, you can specify the operating system that you want if you want to get a bit more granular on the way you deploy stuff. But that's outside the scope of this video. This video is just to show you how to create a virtual machine and deploy a virtual machine using PowerShell. And it's easy as that. It's not hard to do. So I'm just going to close that down, and this is telling me, do you want to disconnect? I'm going to say yes, I want to disconnect. And of course, if I go back into my virtual machines, I can go ahead and stop that virtual machine because while it's running, we are paying for it. So I will click stop. This will prompt me for a warning. Do you want to stop it? I will say yes. And then the notification bell icon at the top will tell me that it's stopping that virtual machine. And again, going through the PowerPoint slides previously, you want to stop virtual machines or deallocate them so that you're not paying for that resource. Again, if you're not using a virtual machine, just delete it. If you're not using a resource group, delete it so that you're not incurring costs that you haven't planned for, or you don't get surprised with a bill because you forgot to delete a virtual machine or you forgot to stop a virtual machine. And as you can see, it stopped that virtual machine, so I'll close this notification down. And also, if we just take a quick look here, you can see it's put it in the RG PowerShell resource group that we created. So I hope you've learned a lot in this little training video. Again, it's just getting you familiar with how to create a virtual machine using PowerShell. I would like to thank you for viewing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.